Professor K.M. Pandey, Professor of Department of English, Banaras Hindu University, Uttar Pradesh, India. Dr. K.M. Pandey is a professor and ex-head of Department Department of English at Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi, UP, India. He is an MA English, PhD, DGTE, and has a teaching experience of more than 39 years. Professor Pandey is a recipient of many awards and medals such as National Merit Scholarship, Vice Chancellor's Gold Medal, and Chancellor's Gold Medal for standing first in BA and MA. He has been a part of many UGC sponsored research projects as Cultural Anguish and the Poetry of Nissim Eskil and Kamla Das, 1993 and 1995 published. City as Scale Scope, Indian English Poetry in Plural Context, 2002-2005, it is published. And the Mahabharata theme in recent Indian novels, a study in the anxiety of influence, 2009-2013. Professor K.M. Pandey has successfully supervised 12 research scholars for the award of PhD degree, and at present he is supervising 8 research scholars. He has vast publications to his name, including 4 books entitled Cultural Anguish in the Poetry of Nissim Eskil and Kamla Das, Rhyming with Reason, The Poetry of Thomas Gray, City as Kaleidoscope, Indian English Poetry in Plural Context, and the Mahabharata, the recent Indian novels. Besides, he has got published more than 40 research articles in various national and international journals and anthologies. Beyond this, he has more than 60 research papers presented at national and international forums. Dr. Pandey is a member of a large number of associations, clubs, and sciences, such as Panel of Experts, Radio Talk, All India Radio, Member Board of Studies, MG Kashi Vidyapeeth, Varanasi, Dr. RML Awadh University, Faizabad, RTVV Jabalpur, ISM Dhanbad, NIT Tripura, NIT Raipur, Sikkim University Gangtok, Member Research Degree Committees. Dr. RML Awadh University, Faizabad, Baraktumba University, Bhopal, Dr. VBS University, Jaunpur, MG Kashi Vidyapeeth, Varanasi, Member Panel of Experts, UPSC, New Delhi, and Member Panel of Experts, NAAC, NAC, Bangalore, etc. Thank you.
Now, Professor K. M. Pandey sir will join us and enlighten us with the knowledge.
Hello, am I audible? Hello.
Yes, sir, you are audible. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for these kind words that you spoke about me. Yes, it has been a kind of mild achievement, I can say. Something done in a positive way. Still on the way to learn. So, Dr. Sanjay Prasad Pandey, the Director, Achievers Foundation for English Studies, and the Associate Professor, Lovely Professional University. Dr. Sudhir Narayan Singh ji, Head Department of English and Humanities, Mahamana Madan Mohan Malviya University of Technology, Gorakhpur. The Principal of LJNH Government College, Kotla Khurd, Una, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, sorry. Dr. Esterine Kire, uh, the chief guest of this session, my friend Dr. Prakash Joshi from the University of Allahabad, delegates who have joined this from India and outside India, students, research scholars, and all the participants. Yeah. I take this opportunity to congratulate all the three institutes who have organized this great event and given me the opportunity to be with you. Share my views on the topic recent trends in postmodernism, reappraising literary and cultural epistemes. Uh, we all know the 20th century has been the age of extremes, as Eric Hobsbawm says. It has witnessed the hitherto unforeseen happenings across the globe, including the two world wars and the emergence of a new world order. In the known history, uh, we haven't seen that kind of troublesome century. In the known 5,000 years, we can go back to the Mahabharata. That is the one period where we see the destruction on a large scale and the re-emergence of the dharmic order, I should say. Otherwise, minor incidents kept on happening across the globe in small, some on a small scale somewhere here and there. But the two world wars uh, shocked us. The two world wars make us, especially the second one, made us to look at the world in a new way. Uh, Dr. Sudhir Narayanji referred to several incidents, especially about the Second World War and also the way it affected culture, the way it affected our mode of thinking. And it was further elaborated by Dr. Pandey, uh, who touched upon some of the key issues. I'm sure uh, many speakers and the presenters and the researchers will add several things to this seminar. I'm going to add a few known things, rather, I will be repeating it in a way. But I believe this. As postmodernism questions even beliefs, but I believe that, yes, even the repetition, even remembering something from the past, not just our own experience, provides meaning to our life. And it is that meaning, that significance, which helps us in getting sustenance. So postmodernism is one such contested term which gained prominence in the 1970s, affecting almost all disciplines in humanities and social sciences. It has broadly been used to name the present historical period. Yeah, Pandaji referred to it, to name a style in art and architecture, to name a point of rupture or disjuncture in epistemology. These two prominent things have happened there. The word postmodernity has been employed to refer to the historical period. Again, these meanings are not finalized, they can never attain finality. In fact, postmodernism intends that then no finality should be there, it should be open ended. But these three terms have gained some kind of meaning, minor distinction. So, postmodernity refers to the historical period, postmodernism for aesthetic dimensions, and postmodern for epistemological aspects. I would be referring to some of them. If we look at the journey of the term, we find that the literary critic Federico Dionis used the term postmodernismo in a collection of Hispanic poetry in 1934 to refer to a short lived reaction to modernism. It was in that very preface he used this word postmodernism for the first time. This is for the new students, young students, this genesis and the development of the way this word traveled. That the term entered the English speaking world when the British historian Arnold Toynbee used it in a negative way in the 8th volume of his book A Study of History 1954. Just 2 decades later, he uses this very term but in a negative way. Both the things, positive and negative overtones, still continue. Yeah. And perhaps herein lies the success of this term, or if we call it a movement. We have to remember that Toynbee used it to refer to a philosophic figuration of a future movement in history. Uh, he thought that this kind of thing would happen, and he had looked at it uh, happening somewhere in future. That is again something very unique, and shows that the kind of genius he was. Later, the Black Mountain poets, uh, the duo rather, Charles Olsen and Robert Creeley, used it in a personal communication in the sense in which it is used now. It just about a shift in history and the developments following that shift. So they focused on this very thing. They noticed that some kind of change, some kind of shift in the thought process is there, and they talked about it, and it became again one of the characteristics of postmodernism. If in the then in the 60s, early 60s and later 60s, two things happened to writers come. If in the early 1960s, Wright Mills and Irving Howe, the two great American writers from New York, restored the negative meaning embodied in the ideals of communism and socialism. In the late 60s, Leslie Fiedler employed the term to refer to the emergence of a new youth culture sensibility, focusing on the significance given to individual freedom of expression rather than the control of state on it. So these two shifts took place. If in the early 60s the negative meaning, in the late, at the almost at the end of the 60s, this youth culture looking forward towards more freedom. Another significant usage of the term came with Ihab Hassan, the Egyptian critic, in 1971, almost a decade later, who, while surveying literature and music, termed some of them to be postmodern rather than modern. In his view, artists like Ashbery, Thomas Pynchon, Warhol prioritized the playful indeterminacy over the modernist fixity. If the modernist showed the disillusionment and looked for through parts to some kind of attainable or unattainable whole, WHOLE, these writers focused on the playful indeterminacy over the modernist fixity. Then the term gained prominence with Lyotard's 1979 book, translated into English as The Postmodern Condition, a report on knowledge, in 1984. In this, he questioned the validity of grand narratives which had been destroyed by the Second World War. It gave space for the emergence of little narratives, or what Luther often referred to as little games, talking about it. He says, and I quote from that very book: the postmodern would be that which in the modern puts forward the unrepresentable in presentation itself, that which would make it possible to share collectively the nostalgia for the attainable, that which searches for new presentations not in order to enjoy them, but in order to impart a stronger sense of the unrepresentable. Unquote. Then, some years later in 1989, David Harvey, uh, in his book The Condition of Postmodernity, uh, talked about late capitalism and the mode of production. Frederick Jameson came later, and he, in his especially three books spanning over 2 decades, namely Marxism and Form, 1971, Late Capitalism, 1975, and The Political Unconscious in 1981, and also the famous essay, Postmodernism and Consumer Society, where he added one more, elaborated one more new aspect which has left a lasting influence on contemporary human society. If we look at this, two more writers they come to my mind, yeah, who have influenced this thought process. Richard Rorty, and another American philosopher, who focused on the aspect of language and the inherent ambiguity in it in his book Philosophy and the Mirror of Nature. Then uh, another great name is that of Linda Hachian, who in several of her articles and her book, A Poetics of Postmodernism, uh, has given new impetus to this very thought process. The Canadian critic has been a staunch critic, and also the one who has added several aspects to this. I'm reminded of uh, Thomas Doherty, who observes, I quote, although the term postmodern has become a insistently used term in cultural debates in recent years, it is a term which has often been used with a great deal of imprecision. Great deal of imprecision. You remember, many a time we look at it as we have the word post in so many words: post-colonial, post-enlightenment, post-modernism. But at another way, we notice that it is this post is different in this post-modernism. What has happened here, what has been we may notice that there are no fixed definitions. If we look for an acceptable definition of it, we may not find it, and perhaps therein lies the vastness of this very text, this very thought process. If we look at the characteristics, it is better to look at postmodernism in a way through which we can recognize it, so we can understand it, because it is to be understood through parts. So Jameson talks about the five symptoms of postmodernism. He says waning of affect, challenging the foundational texts, uh, nature of, you can say, many belief systems, questioning it, and this questioning of foundations suggests finding new ways of comprehending the world. I'm reminded of one thing more here, because whatever books we found, found on postmodernism in the last decade or so, my own association with the text, in most of them, either we look at the Western writers, it is their problem in a way. Yes, existentialism, yeah, we had it, but how had we dealt with that issue? How had we dealt with this kind of question? In our tradition, we have 6 schools of philosophy: 3 believing in something and 3 the non-believers, and making a balance. Okay, you find out some path for knowing your reality. That was there. looking about the questions the way uh, the most important characteristic of postmodernism is the questioning of the foundational institutions. So it suggests that there are new ways of comprehending the world. That kind of suggestion is given, and it has been elaborated on large scale uh, with full books by different writers. Some of them I referred to. The grand narrative implied totalizing everything within its purview, are looking at the whole through parts. So, believing that somewhere the whole is there, either it was the Garden of Eden, or it was Vaikuntha Dham, or it was heaven, somewhere it was there. There was some common source of language, and whatever we have, they all should intend to reach that. So, the parts, through the parts, we want to achieve the whole, and which makes us conscious of being fragmented. So the fragment is not to be celebrated. The celebration comes with the unification of the individual with the system, or the part with the whole, or if I use the spiritual terminology, the small soul S with the capital soul, submerging one's identity. That was another kind of thing. The postmodern issues on the significance, the postmodernism focuses on the significance of parts, little narratives, fragments in culture, literature, and arts and media. There is another thing, the inability of language to accommodate reality completely. This very belief that language cannot through language we cannot comprehend the complete reality. In our own tradition we had this kind of answer. Again, when I talk about my tradition, the purpose is not to just establish the supremacy of it, but the way an alternative mode of thinking had been there. It was not a dominant mode which suppressed others, but there was the availability of different kinds of modes and tools and thought processes through which one could find out the reality and the meaning in his or her life. The inability of language to accommodate reality completely. The reality is not universal, but can only be provisional. So, valorize the provisional, so valorize the provisional, praise the provisional, the commonplace, the fragment, the moving moment. As an Indian, I am bound to think about Gautam Buddha, who says you cannot bathe in the same water again. You cannot feel the same moment again. So,
तो आप
uh,
यहाँ पे ध्यान दीजिएगा
uh,
करण मैम एक और बात पे ध्यान दीजिएगा
please,
कि कनेक्शन
yeah,
की टेम्परेचर
please,
Can the organizers please
yeah,
ask people not to speak when a
yeah,
speaker is speaking?
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, uh, the reality itself is provisional, and so is the language. And so, the commonplace, the fragment, the moving moment is to be seen through a variety of perspectives. One can notice the shadow of Derrida's deconstruction here regarding the deferral nature of language and meaning, just one of the aspects, and the impossibility of the finality in meaning. How can we forget Gautam Buddha, whose worldview of addressing the issues faced by the individuals in his time. Again, my focus is not that uh, it is his universal way of looking at it, or the universality that has been associated with him. Yes, that is not the issue, but saying this, that apadipo bhav, it is the individual who has to find out the way. The fragmented person can find out his or her meaning for him. One may get it or not. So that is one thing. Then the concept of self-reflexivity. uh, we can find this in Rushdie's novels, especially Midnight Children or John Fowles' text, The French Lieutenant's Woman, where we find the tendency to interrogate the self. Interrogating the self makes me again think of the Upanishads. The very word Upanishad, sit together. We are sitting here on a different platform. Some people are physically present there in Gorakhpur, and maybe at one or two other places as well. And all those who are sitting alone, they become part through this very virtual mode. So this Upanishad, our Upanishads, provided this very option of ask questions. We have been a questioning culture. Questions had never been stopped in our culture because it is important to remember that if the question is good, if the question carries weight, it doesn't matter whether we get the answer or not, whether the person who has to answer is able to satisfy us or not. The important thing is, if you ask a question, a genuine one may, postmodernism will say, where does this genuineness lie? That's another issue. But yes, finding the proper question, even if the answer is not there, someday the answer will come. That was one kind of belief, one may say, that is also part of the larger grand narrative, one may say so. But the way, the celebration of the fragmented, the celebration of the individual, the celebration of the small organism has been there. In fact, I am reminded of one of the Upanishads, which is known as Prashnopanishad. I am reminded of the way the Natya Shastra is written. 5 basic questions, and in the answer of those basic questions, the whole text has been written. So, asking questions may have different goals. Am I asking for the question's sake? Am I asking to share some knowledge? Am I asking to gain some knowledge? What is that? So, if there is a right question or a good question, or the urge to know, I too come from the university known for making a kind of bridge between the East and the West. Pratichi Prachi ka Mel Sundar. Providing a platform where the best ideas from the West and the East meet. Looking at the postmodernism and the critic, I ask this question: where am I? Where is my reality as an individual? How do whatever is said there, is it my reality as well? The answer could be yes. Some of them could be my reality, but not all of them. So that also brings us to another level of thought. There are different kinds of fragmentations, different kinds of realities, and so this multiplication is to be celebrated. There is another aspect hidden here, another very important aspect where there is this virtual mode. This internet has provided a lot of information to us. I remember some critic uses the word, it we are living in an information soaked world. The problem is the information versus wisdom. I'm reminded of two professors, one with many books on the wasteland and the other just the text. Oh, how do you explain that? The other said, you are a scholar, so you have to prove that scholarship. I am a Gyani. I close my eyes and the meaning of those lines dance on me. That was another framework in which he used that. But there is one more aspect along with the this explosion of information through internet and other tools, globalization and postmodernism. One of the ways where the market forces control us, even when we do not remember that we are governed by some other forces. So the two things, we are conscious of this thing, that this technology is going to help us, but this technology is going also to disturb us. It is snatching away the some of the parts of us that was recognized to be a human one. So but this technological inevitability, there is this another aspect is that of undecidability, that nothing is permanent, nothing is fixed. I'm reminded of again Kabir. I come from this very city. Had chale so manwa, behad chale so sadh. Had behad dono chale, takar mata agad. So one who knows one's limit, he may be a good person, yes. He may be treated as a human being, but one who is capable of crossing the boundaries, crossing the limit, maybe a saint. But one who is capable of doing both, he is greater than both the persons. It was in this very sense Hajari Prasad Dwivedi ji had said that human beings are better than gods because gods are bound by certain norms they cannot cross those boundaries, whereas human beings could cross the boundaries created even by them. So using this kind of questioning the grand narratives related to God, truth, reason, law, the civilizational epistemes, Dr. Singh elaborated that the developmental episteme, that yes, the development can come only through through the West, only through technology. We realized it was not so. Just some years before, just a couple of years before, we saw our developmental model. And then we started saying, oh, it happens in every century. Within a century, we have some kind of plague, some kind of epidemic, and something happens. And then again, nature recovers itself. So we can say it is a kind of a new enlightenment way of thinking about God, national identity, also colonialism. We know how industrialism brought some kind of development, but what kind of imbalance was created by it. The Christian faith or the truth or the so much trust on reason. I think so, I am. That was what one of the philosophers had said. Then this kind of dissemination is different from the kind of copying or imitation that Plato had talked about. Imitation can also be original. I remember Aristotle in one of the chapters, later chapters, perhaps 26, says that the imitation can be better than the original. Imitation of the ideal, and we know he is modifying his guru Plato. So here, dissemination doesn't mean copying or a copy because carbon copy. When we thought of the copy, it was the carbon copy that came to our mind. But now we know the technology can create another kind of thing. The second one can also be equally good. It can also be made better. The technology can assist us. So the copy. Carbon copy or the other copy, rather the first one and the second one, second or third, does not mean that is inferior. So we can say the reviewing, reinterpreting the kind of binary that we had in our tradition, tatsam and tadbhav, like one, and tadbhav, something that emanates from something. So the thing which emanates is inferior. Someone who comes first is superior. That kind of thought process we had. But the concept of dissemination makes us review even this concept, that because the term has been used in the sense of scattering of origins and ends, we can say, of identity, center, or presence, and so on. So just as dissemination of seeds, the same seed, different seeds will grow in the same way, not just the carbon copy, but it is possible to make it better or to worsen it. The other concept that is of a simulation, again the same that I uh, talked about just now. Philosophically, we say, who am I? That very question. This basic question, whether in whatever period we are living, we have to ask. Shankaracharya 1,000 years ago talked about it. Yeah. Koham, who am I? Soham, I am that. Who are you? You too are that. But again, it is another kind of grand narrative that should be questioned, because there are other kinds of realities. I'm reminded of what Shankuk says about this copy. The word is simulation or scattering had not been used, but dissemination not used, but this kind of thing. Chitra Turagnyay. An image of the horse is there, and if someone asks, "Is it a horse?" and you say yes, is it a horse? No, no, no. It's not a horse. It's a copy of the horse. So the realization that you see, it is this kind of thing through which uh, the postmodernist critics talk about the reality where the advertisement or photography or say the image of pizza or the image of hamburger, through that the reality is created. I'm reminded of the way they talk about the war, forgetting the horror of the war. They say the war is only on the TV, and it is only this one that is going to affect us. They do not talk about what happens where the war is being fought. It is not just uh, the TV one that is going to affect us. What about those who are who are facing that or who are involved in that war? One who is seeing, uh, that is also another contested area where they talk about this reality or hyper reality. Uh, Again, looking at language, I, as I keep on asking myself, yes, there are 4 levels of language: Parapashyanti, Madhyama, Vaikhari, and we are only talking about the last one, Vaikhari, that we speak. There is just another level, Madhyama, something that we think about, that one. But what about the other two? That is also reality, and that can be at the level of the individual, one knowing the meaning of life, if not possible. What about the seeing of it? Do we see will we see the reality, only that very reality that is shown by others to us, or we will also try to comprehend reality as seen by us? So I know I'm crossing the limit of time and uh, should stop here. But with just two comments, that if it is multi role of multinationals there, and hybridization, celebration of pastiche, reference to Bollywood films and Hollywood films, and talking about this hybridization and the celebration of this hybridization, uh, all these things come much later. I'm reminded of the song that Rajkumar sings before I was born. मेरा जूता है जापानी सिर पर लाल टोपी. So. 1955, the song written in 1951 and coming in 1955. As an Indian, even that very image comes to my mind. And one thing with which I would end, whatever is suggested by this mode or that mode, postmodernity, yes, uh, talking about the unpresentable or simulation or dissimulation or depthlessness, uh, little or grand narratives, but one thing must be there. If the postmodern suspends, dislocates, and transforms the oppositional structures presupposed by major Western modes of thought, by classical Marxism, psychoanalysis, existentialism, semiotics. I'm quoting this line again from one of the critics, Mr. Bennett and Royal, in from that very book, this very sentence. Where is the other part of the world on this very global platform? I i end my talk with this very question: where are we in this very frame? And I would end with a couplet of Nida Fazli, my favorite poet, Urdu poet. दुनिया की हर एक शय को अपनी नजर से देखो, ऐसा नहीं कि दुनिया जो कुछ कहे सही हो. Look at the world from your own eyes. It may not be whatever the world is saying may not be true. Gautam Buddha used this very idea, proclaimed this idea 2500 years before when he said Appadipo Bhava. Be your own light, and we all know light cannot be there without burning the oil. So burn the oil that is there. Ask the and burning oil may metaphorically mean asking unpleasant questions, uneasy questions to yourself, not just to others, and looking for the possible answers and honoring that answer and sharing that answers with others. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. We are humbled to listen to your kind deliberations. And really, as and when I look my alma mater, Department of English, Banaras Hindu University, I always repeat, and I am again repeating in front of my students because I am your student and they are my
Oh,
student.
yeah. I
So I
feel
am passing the message
privileged.
to the
Yeah.
third generation of your third generation, and a salute to professors like the professor Pandey sir, that इखलाक के
Yeah.
कदमों में कलंदर नहीं गिरता, टूटे जो सितारा तो जमी पर नहीं गिरता, गिरते हैं बड़े शौक से समंदर में दरिया, लेकिन कभी दरिया में समंदर नहीं गिरता. So it's a tribute to my gurus, and we see that our honorable speaker, Professor Prakash sir, also is connected from University of Allahabad. We are, sir, pranam to you, and you are welcome to our forum. And at the meantime, we have gone a bit changed to the schedule, pre-decided schedule, because our chief guest is connected from Norway, Esterine Kire. So I request the organizer to invite her to be connected, and then later on we will be moving
Yeah.
as per our schedule. So thank you, sir.
Sorry for the interruption. Sorry for the interruption. Just a sentence, just to share that it's in honor of Dr. Kire. As many as four research scholars are doing research on her novels. This is something great, and it is through them that I had read just one of the novels, and through her creative world that I have known the Northeast in a much better way. Yeah. So my humble pranam to her, and just share this thing. If I hope she is here. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for enlightening speech and on postmodernism. Your deep insights, comprehensive knowledges provided us to understand the complexity. Now, it is our thanks to you for enlightening us. Then wisdoms and truly appreciate your presence here. Now, thank you. I would like to call Dr. Sudhir Narayan Singh to read the profile note of Professor Esteem Kiran. Thank you, sir.